By the time you're an adult in Earth School, you usually have collected two things: spiritual scars and a lot of opinions about God. Maybe you were told your religion was the only true one. Maybe you ran from religion and still feel guilty or lost. And now, when someone mentions God, Jesus, the universe, Allah, whatever, you feel your body tense because you don't know how to be curious about these beliefs without either betraying yourselves or starting a war. In this episode, I want to give you one dangerous idea, a way to stand in your own evolving spirituality while sitting at the same table with people who believe seemingly completely different things without feeling threatened and without having to make anyone else wrong. There is a dangerous idea out there, an idea that underneath all our religions, underneath all of the different rituals, all of our differences, underneath all of the I'm right, you're wrong arguments, there is one universal truth, one reality, one source, only one God. And what if understanding that is actually part of our instruction manual for Earth School, especially if you've been spiritually burned, confused, fragmented, or maybe you just hold judgments towards those who have a different concept of God, different than your own. But what if the fights we have about God, spirituality, who's right, are all arguments about the same thing just from different angles? Think of that old story about the blind man and the elephant. One man fills the elephant's trunk and swears the elephant is like a snake. One holds the leg and insists that the elephant is like a tree. One leans against the side and says, "You're all wrong. The elephant's like a wall." Different descriptions, same elephant. For me, the elephant is that living, mysterious presence people call God, source, spirit. I mean, there's so many names, right? The perennial philosophy is the daring idea that says every tradition is touching a part of it, a part of that elephant. None of us are holding the whole. I didn't learn this idea in a traditional classroom. I learned it by watching and observing real people fight for their lives. I learned it sitting in recovery circles, listening to people of every faith and those with no faith at all who were just trying not to die. I've prayed with Christians who love Jesus. I have laughed with atheists who swear they believe in nothing, but then they fall apart watching a sunset. I have done silent retreats with Buddhist monks. I have shared tea with Muslims who pray 5 times a day. I've listened to Jewish friends wrestle with the idea of God, and I've joined Hindu kirtan circles chanting devotionally and practice Kundalini yoga with devout yogis. On the surface, all of it looks different, but when I stopped listening to their doctrines and started listening to their hearts or the essence underneath the perceived differences, something became unmistakable. The same language was pulsing underneath every tradition. The shared pulse of longing, humility, and wonder that lives underneath every path, every prayer, every practice. The hidden language of the human heart speaking the same truth in 1,000 different dialects. The essence within us that says we're connected to something bigger than our story. Different costumes pointing to the same truth. This is where spiritual healing actually starts. Remembering that your worth and your belonging don't depend on choosing the right team, but in remembering that we are already connected to the same source every tradition is trying to name. So, how does this help us navigate Earth School, this weird, painful, yet beautiful place where so many different faiths and people try to sell you their ideas of being correct or cancel you over what you do believe? What helped me personally is that I completely stopped asking, is this faith correct? Is this person's belief really the truth? Instead, I started asking, Does this practice or what they are saying help me remember that deeper, undamaged place in me? Does it invite me into love, humility, and connection, or into fear, superiority, and division? Suddenly, you're not at the mercy of every spiritual authority, nor are you at the mercy of trying to judge everyone as either right or wrong. You're listening for the one perennial truth running through all of them. If you grew up terrified of hell, or if religion was used as a weapon against you, or if you were taught that any other belief other than yours is the devil in disguise, then religious or spiritual unity might sound fake, offensive, or even dangerous. But when you see that even the most different traditions share a core compassion, humility, surrender, awareness, you can stop throwing your whole story away just because one version hurt you. I grew up Catholic. I went to private Catholic schools. I was actually the first female altar server at St. Bernard's Catholic Church when they started allowing, females to be altar servers. My dad is a part of the Knights of Columbus, and we were at Mass every single Sunday while I was growing up. When I entered high school, some alarming things were coming to light about some of the priests in the Catholic Church. I'm sure most of you know what I'm referring to, and it was happening directly in my community. Young people, children, were being harmed by religious authorities. I was horrified. By high school, I also started studying a lot of ancient texts and ancient history. Well, you don't have to start studying ancient history for long before you quickly encounter some of the past destruction at the hands of the Vatican. I was horrified even more. In my mind, the Catholic Church had the patent on God, and I thought, well, if this is God's church, then I want nothing to do with it. I want nothing to do with God. So I turned my back. And I can tell you from personal experience that cutting oneself off from God, from the sunlight of the Spirit, makes one very sick. Now, those things I lightly touched on with the Catholic Church happened. They were real, but my reaction wasn't balanced. Discounting God entirely or completely ignoring the beautiful and meaningful messages within this Catholic faith, and there are many, is its own kind of distortion. No one has a patent on God. Every religious institution probably means well, but they're ran by humans, and humans are flawed. Institutions can be corrupted, but that still doesn't erase the deeper, more holy truths these traditions carry. And that's a hard thing to admit when one is sitting in judgment. That was hard for me to admit when I was sitting in judgment. I had to learn this the hard way. You're allowed to keep the gold and drop the violence, the shame, the corruption, the control. I can take what is meaningful and leave the rest. The rest of it is very human, right? Seeing the underlying sameness rather than focusing on all the differences also changes how we relate to other humans. In Earth School, we're going to meet people whose beliefs feel alien or threatening. The perennial philosophy invites us to try something radical. Look past the words and watch what happens in their hearts. When you witness someone seeking meaning in a way that looks foreign to you, can you sense the same longing in your own heart? That same reaching for meaning, safety, love? If so, you've just found the same elephant. You don't have to agree with all the minute of differences to recognize their humanity. What I want you to walk away with is this. In Earth School, we are allowed to be curious instead of terrified. We are allowed to stand in our own evolving spirituality without attacking or abandoning others. We don't have to pick the right religion to be connected to the one God, one source, one spirit. We don't even need to pick a religion. That's also totally fine. But you can still see the sameness or oneness in others. The perennial philosophy is permission. Permission to stop obsessing over who has the perfect map and start paying attention to the actual terrain. your lived experience of love, truth, and presence. If you remember nothing else from this episode, then remember this as you move through Earth School. Everyone you meet is touching a part of the same mystery you're touching. Some will cling to the trunk and call it the whole elephant. Some will swear the leg is everything. You don't need to correct them. Our work here is to keep feeling for the whole, to let whatever path you walk bring you back to that undamaged place inside of you, and to recognize it when you see it flicker in someone else's eyes, no matter what name or concept they use for God. Have a good week.